What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and perfect result. Perfect result, perfect performance. Okay, maybe not perfect performance, but still overall really good day for Chelsea. 3-0 win at Everton, better than I could have asked for. To be honest, this was the one I was the most concerned about, mainly because, like I said last week, our defense has been struggling, Everton's been in good form. I expected a goal fest, and to be honest, it looked like there was going to be. I mean, the first minute and a half, there's a chance deflected off Courtois' glove off the post, and then Cahill has to barely get it out. And then just a few minutes later, Hazard's down the other side, taking it past Stecklenburg, but passing it to the side of the net. So I'm just like, it's not going to be long before we get a goal. And then finally the goal does come late in the second half for us. And then at that point, we were already pretty much in control. It was just a matter of, was Everton able to hold on? They weren't. And so, we get that first one, then all of a sudden the second one comes pretty easy, and then the third one comes after some of the subs came on. So, I mean, all in all, just a really good performance to go along with that result. And, I mean, you really look at how both sides attacked the game. Everton came out ready to play. I mean, like I said, they got a chance very early on. They did kind of keep very disciplined at the back, but for the most part, I mean, Calvert-Lewin, I think is his name, and Valencia, they were doing as much as they could. Barry was trying to find their through balls. I mean, honestly, they were trying to create something up there, and they just weren't able to. That luck wasn't there for them today. And then Lukaku did a typical Lukaku during big games and pulled a Mesut Ozil. But seriously, Arsenal, I mean, come on. You couldn't do anything. You couldn't even draw Tottenham. You had to let them win, so it's still close. You can't trust Arsenal for anything. Anyway, but yeah, I mean, honestly, I think part of what helped us today is the fact that Lukaku doesn't do well in big games. And the only reason I bring that up is because there's a lot of talk that we're going to sign him in the summer, because there's a lot of talk that Costa's going to leave. I honestly don't know if we want him. Like he's good, sure. But the only reason he's top scorer right now is because against the smaller teams in the league, he scores a lot of goals. In the big games, like against Chelsea, like against Tottenham, like against Man U, like against Man City, the big teams, he can't score against. I don't think I've seen him. I want to. Somebody ought to check that out, see how many goals he scored against the top six this season, because it can't be a lot. Today he wasn't involved at all. Against Liverpool, he didn't even get a shot off. I mean, honestly, he is not good in big games. And so that's just something going forward, because there's a lot of talk that we'll be looking at signing him back. I don't know if we want him. I don't know if we want a striker that can't produce in the games where it matters. In the games where we're up against our rivals for the title, we don't want a striker that's just going to fade out of the game completely and not even be involved. So that's just something looking at going forward. Another thing to look at for this game is the fact that for majority of it, Jonathan Moss wanted to try to make this as interesting a title race as possible. And, I've complained about referees a lot before, and this one probably wasn't the worst one we've seen this season. But there is something to be said whenever Hazard's trying to get away from Ghana, Ghana's pulling his arm down, and the foul goes against Hazard. I mean, I'm not going to say he's paid off or anything, but there might be something to be said about a bit of bias, because, this is the team in the lead, and this is the underdogs. I'm gonna fight for the underdogs today. I don't know if that's actually what's going through his mind, but there were a lot more soft fouls called for Everton than there were soft fouls called for Chelsea. And he did call a couple for us, but for the most part, he was letting Everton rough us up. He's letting Everton knock us off the ball, do whatever they can, and then we touch them, they fall over. Oh, that's a foul. Go ahead. So yeah, it was a bit one-sided day from him, but nothing too crazy. Like, oh, I can't believe he gave that penalty because Rashford just fell over, even though Fabianski didn't touch him. I gotta stop letting other games come into my review of the Chelsea game. Anyway, but on to individual performances. First one is Courtois, of course. For the most part, didn't have that much to do today, and he was called upon at times to make some saves off of crosses to kind of get the pressure off of us. But the main one to focus on was the first one, and to be honest, was a little bit nervy there. I mean, just watching the replay, it was going wide, and then he gets a hand to it, and it deflects it towards the goal, and luckily it came off the post and back out. But it is something to be said about those little low near post shots. He does need to work maybe a bit more on just getting down low, not letting those up underneath him. Because I mean that is one thing that if you're a tall goalkeeper is something to really kind of focus on, is make sure that those aren't getting underneath your arms. You got to get down quickly, or stick a foot out and get it away. But that one there was a little bit close, and lucky not to give away a goal very early on. So aside from that, though, didn't have a whole lot to do. When he did have something to do, he did well, which is good to see. The back three, Azpilicueta, David Luiz, Cahill again. Azpilicueta, for me, probably man of the match. Just because going forward, we didn't really have somebody who was constantly threatening. Even Hazard today, even though he was doing well, because he was being specifically marked, he does have to kind of take away from what he normally does. If nobody's marking him, he's just free flowing. He can just do whatever he wants. But when somebody's marking him, he does. I'll talk about him later. So for me, the only person that was consistently just doing well today was Azpilicueta. I mean, the first shot, the one that Courtois tipped on the bar, he was beaten by a little bit of pace, but after that, nothing got past him. I mean, he was just constantly there. There were times whenever he had to go up against Lukaku because David Luiz got pulled out of position, and he did well. I mean, he's almost a whole foot shorter than he is, and he's up there battling with him. He's keeping him out. He's doing as much as he can to make sure he's not getting behind him. So for me, Azpilicueta is my man of the match, just because he did so much to prevent any sort of danger back there. David Luiz, on the other hand, for me is the worst man of the match. I don't know if it was the injury, I don't know what it was, but for me, he has been poor over the past several games. And I talked about him in the last game, I talked about the mistakes, I talked about the silliness, silly fouls, silly coming out when he doesn't have to, getting pulled out of position. Today was no different, and if Lukaku were ready for today, if he weren't a player that fades out against big teams, he would have hurt us. Because there are so many times where David Luiz is specifically marked to Lukaku, and he's getting beat. And thankfully, Lukaku's next pass is terrible, or else we'd be in danger. And he looks so off the pace recently. I mean, I don't know if I'm the only one that's seeing this, but he's seriously got something going on. And after the injury happened, I'm like, we got to get him off. He's already playing poor, and now he's struggling with an injury. You've got to take him off. I understand he's kind of the middle of your front three, but to be honest, he's the liability of the three. Azpilicueta is the one that you can't take out right now because he's the one covering for everybody. David Luiz, on the other hand, is the one causing these problems. He needs to come out. And they were mentioning, the whole Costa debacle that happened earlier in the season where he wanted to be subbed because he was one yellow away from missing the next game, which was against Man City. And Conte was like, no, you're not being subbed. They were trying to compare the two, but the biggest difference is that game we needed Costa, and all he had to do was just not get a yellow. You can control yourself to keep from getting a yellow. This one is a lot different because, one, he's your struggling defender at the moment. Two, he's got an injury, which is not just something you can just go play through it. No, it's hard to play when you've got an injury that affects that. And three, and probably the most important, you've got Ake and Zuma on the bench. You've got players that can do what he does, if not better. We can't really replace Costa. At the time, Batshuayi was still coming into the team. I don't even think he'd featured in a match yet. So that situation, so much different than you got your worst defender on the field who's struggling with an injury, and you've got two young defenders that can easily take his place. Get him off the field. I honestly, I was shocked whenever Conte was like, no, you're staying. I'm like, are you serious? Thankfully, Ake did come on for him later, but I don't know. If this is an injury that's been affecting him for the past few games, and that's why he's been struggling, rest it up. We've got backup. We've got players that can do what you can do, if not better. So just keep him off the field because I just don't think he's working for us right now. I think he's been part of the problem that we've had and why we haven't kept a clean sheet for quite a while. And today Ake comes on, and where Lukaku was winning the battles, but then his I guess the final quality wasn't there. When Ake came on the field, it was like he wasn't even winning the battles anymore. Now Ake's stepping in and winning the battles. He's just got so much strength and intelligence for somebody that's younger. I love watching him play. He's one of those players that you throw in there, and he may not win the first one, but he's going to be there for the second one. If you beat him, whether it's on skill, whether it's on speed, you're not beating him a second time. He's either taking you or he's taking the ball. And he's so much fun to watch because of how energetic he is as a defender. And honestly, I just think he brings so much more to the team than either Cahill or David Luiz. So the fact that we're not playing him more is really shocking to me. I thought the reason we brought him back from Bournemouth was because he was doing all of this stuff. So I don't know. That's kind of David Luiz and Ake both at the same time. But yeah, on to Gary Cahill. Got himself another goal today. Like I said in the last game, I can see why you don't want to bring him off because he does pop up and score the occasional goal that does help us out. But defensively, you can see he still struggles. And I think, to be honest, I think what should be happening is you should have Azpilicueta and Ake out there sort of covering for Cahill. Because at that point, it's like, okay, so Cahill's there kind of as like not necessarily the best defender, but solid. And then on top of that, he can also get forward and help out in the attack, which he does pretty well on. And on top of that, you've got two defenders back there who can cover for him. Azpilicueta covers very well. Ake can cover very well. So I just think that works so much better than you've got David Luiz, who's a liability, and you've got Cahill, who's a liability defensively. And so Azpilicueta has to cover for them both. That's scary. You don't have to force all that onto Azpilicueta. But it wasn't his worst game today defensively, but there were still times where he struggled against the strength of Lukaku and the pace of Valencia. He's just off the pace at times, and it can lead to some dangerous moments. On the wingbacks, Alonso and Moses again. Moses definitely looked a bit more up for it today. There have been a couple games recently where he's just kind of faded in and out of the game. Today, he was much more involved, I think, getting forward. And mainly because they kind of forced the ball one way. Obviously with Hazard marked out of the game, it was like they're trying to, I guess, force it wide, keep it out of the middle, out of Pedro and Costa's feet. And so Moses had to be available, and he had to be there, and he was for the most part. So I really like how much energy he has and how willing he is to do the work to get up and to get back. Alonso, similar, but his end product still has to improve. I mean, I've talked about it before. When he first came on, the crosses he was delivering were dangerous. They were great crosses. There were ones that you're just like, if somebody was just there, that would have been a goal. Now it's like, crosses it in, and then Stecklenburg's kicking it away for a goal kick. Because, I don't know what happened. I don't know why he's struggling with that now. But he's definitely got some issues. Defensively, I'd say he does okay. Still, similar to what I've said before, he still struggles with one-on-one situations, but when it comes to sort of tracking back and helping out defensively, he does pretty well there. Just the times where he turns off are a bit more noticeable. But I think part of that also has to do with the fact that he and Cahill are on the same side. And so whenever somebody gets past him and gets to Cahill, it's like, holy crap, we're in danger. Whereas if somebody gets past Moses and he's not tracking back, Azpilicueta's there. And chances are they're not getting past him. They'd have to be really, really good to get past Azpilicueta. So, on to the midfield, Matic and Conte. Disappointed once again to see Matic starting. I thought midweek against Southampton really, really struggled. Today, still seeing the same thing. Defensively, he's not really that defensive rock that I want him to be. That big body, the one that sort of is in there for his strength, to hold people off, to win the ball out of the air. He's not really in there for that. Honestly, David Luiz is stepping up in the middle more to win the ball out of the air than Matic is. So, what's he in there for? Well, maybe it's to stay on the ball. Not really. He gets the ball picked off of him more than a couple times. Maybe it's first passing. No, not really, because half his passes work, half his passes don't. And you've got Fabregas on the bench, whose passes always work 99% of the time. So I don't know. I look at the two. You compare Fabregas to Matic. You would expect Matic to be in there for his defensive work, but to be honest, I mean Conte does so much defensive work on his own. Your other defensive midfielder doesn't really have to be a great defender. He just has to be solid. And Matic has lost that solidity. I don't know what the word is, but he's kind of lost that ability to sort of just hold it down and be a rock in the middle. And Fabregas, I mean, he's not the greatest defender, but he reads the play well. He makes some good interceptions. And on top of that, when he's on the ball, chances are we've got possession for quite a while. I mean, I've talked about this earlier in the season, watching him direct the play, watching him, he's moving the ball out and he's telling them get it wide. He's telling everybody where to pass. Whenever he's out there, we have so much more possession, whereas Matic is in there, we give the ball away quite a bit. He gives the ball away quite a bit. Nobody's really commanding the midfield. It's more like we're winning the ball off of Everton and hoping to hit them on the counterattack, which can work at times, but if we want to really truly control the play, I think Fabregas is just a much better option than Matic. Fabregas did end up coming on in the second half and right away was involved. I think his very first touch was a pass in behind for Costa, which he almost beat Stecklenburg to, but narrowly missed it, and then ends up assisting Williams' goal later on. So it just immediately comes onto the field and he's involved, whereas Matic has been on the field for the entire game. He's not really been involved that much, defensively, attacking-wise. He's just sort of been somebody to pass to, and he can pass it to somebody else, and that's about it. So, I don't know. Maybe I'm the only one, but I'd much rather see Fabregas out there than Matic. Matic can still improve. He's still younger, so he can still improve and get his game up to a higher level and become that player that we had a couple years ago. But right now, I just think he's struggling for form. He's struggling both sides of the ball. Get somebody out there who's not struggling. Fabregas. Conte, I don't really need to talk about him because, I mean, he's either winning interceptions the entire game or he's moving the ball around well the entire game. Today it was more interception-wise. He had to do a lot to kind of keep the counterattack of Everton from coming at us and hitting us hard. He's always there. He's always there. He's always at least slowing down the counterattack to give us time to get back on defense and sort of helps out our defense a lot. I mean, as a defender, I would love to have him on my team just because I know, okay, we just lost the ball. I've got some time to organize because Conte's there. He's going to step in. He's going to slow it down. And once again, I don't know if I talked about this. I might have. He's such an honest player. And he's honest and modest at the same time. And there are so few players like that nowadays. Like you compare him to some of the great midfielders, great midfielders now as well. Pogba, just comparing the two because they're French and they're both in the midfield and they're both considered, to be the best midfielder on their team. You compare the two, Pogba's all about the flair. He's always got a new haircut. Ooh, what's his new haircut? Ooh, he's got a Pogba emoji now. Ooh, he's worth this much money. Ooh, look at that. Ooh, look at that. It's all about the ooh, look at this. Conte just does what he does. He goes out there, he wins the ball back. I'm watching him today. There's a moment where what exactly happened? There's a moment where Davies, I think, came in and got the ball, but mainly got Conte. It's like he kind of went through Conte to get the ball. And I'm thinking, that's a foul. Referee says no. I'm expecting Conte to say something. No. He's back up, and he's immediately sprinting back, trying to win the ball back. And most players at that point, out of frustration, would go in and kick the crap out of Davies. Not Conte. Conte's in behind him. He's slowing him down. He's doing as much as he can to kind of keep him from getting at our defense. He just works so hard, doesn't ask for reward, doesn't ask for appreciation or praise. He just does it. He doesn't complain. If he ever makes a foul or even if there's a moment where he gets the ball and it's not a foul, you never see him get in the ref's face what the hell, come on. Some of these players, Costa, definitely one of those players. Every single time a call doesn't go his way, he's complaining, he's upset, he's screaming, pounding the ground. Conte doesn't care. Conte just goes and plays, and That is such a rare type of player nowadays. And the more I see it, the more I appreciate it because I, I've said this before. I coach a high school team. I'm the goalkeeper coach for a high school team. Watching these guys play, it's like they want to argue. They want to complain. It's like that's just the mindset nowadays. They want to complain about something. Even being a fan at the Atlanta United game tonight, every single time a challenge comes in, even if it's a clean one, if it's on one of our players, fans everywhere are yelling at the referee, calling for a foul, even if it's not, because we want to complain. We want things our way. Nobody ever just says, you know what? Okay, ref didn't call it. I'm just going to keep playing. Conte does. And I love it about him. So, anyway, that's my little, not really a rant, but I guess little praise heap onto Conte, because not only is he a great player, but he's a great player without having to be all flary and having to try to do all of this stuff, trying to get a call from the referee. He's just a great player doing what he does and not letting anybody else affect him. So that's great to see. Into the front three, Pedro, Hazard, and Diego. Pretty much what I expected. I would like to see Willian a bit more just because scored 2 against Tottenham in the FA Cup, scored 1 today. He's really working hard and working on trying to get back into the team. But I do understand that Pedro, what he does today. Once again, just typical Pedro style. Just throughout the entire game, I'm complaining, I'm upset, I'm like, why is he on the field? I'm asking Willian to get on the field. I'm like, why aren't we making a sub? What's going on? He's giving the ball away. Yeah, he works hard to get back and win it, but I mean, he's only doing that because he gave the ball away. What a great move. Oh, Pedro, terrible cross. What are you doing, man? Come on, let's pick it up. What are you doing? Goal into the top corner. Every time. I can't even explain it. It's just, it happens. I could be the most upset with Pedro I've ever been, and just somehow he'd pull out a goal out of nowhere. And the thing is, if he was just, if he was having a terrible game, and we were up 3-0, and I'm just like, he's not really contributing anything, and he scored, I'd be like, yeah, so, I mean, who cares? But the thing is, with Pedro, it's like, he's having a terrible game, or he's not doing much, or he's making mistakes, and even though he works, like I said, he works hard to win it back. That is one thing that he definitely has going for him. But there are several times where it feels like he's the reason why he's having to work so hard to win it back, because he gave it away. So I'm watching this and I'm getting frustrated, and it's 0-0, and then all of a sudden he pulls that off. Against Bournemouth, I think he did a similar thing. I think we're like up 2-1 or something like that, and so it was really close. Or it may have been the first goal. But then just all of a sudden, brilliant goal. The Tottenham game, they score an early goal. This was at our place. They score an early goal, and I'm just like, well, crap, this sucks. And all of a sudden, Pedro out of nowhere just curls it into the far corner. It's so bizarre to me, and honestly, I think it should be a tactic now. Like, we put him on the field, if he's having a terrible game, just wait for him to get the goal. As soon as he gets that goal, sub him off, because that's the only thing he's going to do for the rest of the game. But yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people love him and love what he does, but for me, on the ball, that end product has got to be better. He's a bit selfish with it at times. Most of the time, it's a bad pass. Whether he's thinking something completely different from everybody else. He's expecting a long pass, nobody's making the run for it. He's trying to cross it, it's over everybody's head. He's trying to find a simple pass, it's right to the defender. It feels like that just happens way too much for a player of his quality. So, take the good with the bad, I guess. You have him out there, he's frustrating, but if he gets the goal, sub him off. Bring on Willian at that point, because that's pretty much all I expect from him, is just to get a goal. Hazard, this is one I wanted to get a little bit more technically into, because Phil Neville was, unfortunately, the commentator today on NBC, and he just kept talking about, they're man-marking him today, and Herrera did that when he was up against Man U, and that was so effective, and this is going to be effective today, and you just mark him out of the game, he can't do anything, and he was not effective against Man U, he should have taken Herrera out of the game completely, and just like, shut up, you don't know what you're talking about. Because first of all, They did the same thing in the FA Cup. Herrera man-marked Hazard. The difference is, in that one, Costa and Pedro were up for it that day. And so, even though Hazard was being man-marked, he had an outlet to play to. Today, kind of a similar thing. Pedro, even though his passing wasn't great, much more movement from him today. Even Costa today was pretty good movement. So he had an outlet to play to. So even though Ghana was constantly all over him, he has an outlet to play to now. And so instead of when we played at Old Trafford, there's nobody moving for him. At that point, it's like he gets the ball, there are no options. And so he either loses it or he's got to try to take Herrera one-on-one, and half the time he can do it, half the time he can't. Sometimes, like what happened in the FA Cup, Herrera has to foul him several times, gets himself thrown off for it. Today, Ghana at one point has to foul him, gets a yellow. On top of that, that free kick leads to Cahill's goal. So I just think you look at what he does, even when he's being man-marked, he's still dangerous. Because, first of all, just to counter one of the things that Phil Neville said, he brought up this one time where Eric Cantona was being man-marked like that. And so he went and stood at left back the entire game, because whoever was marking him, at that point, do you just stay up there with him or what? Here's the thing, he's not like that. First of all, he's not Eric Cantona. Second of all, he's the type of player where he still can be involved even if he's being man-marked. He can still play the quick 1-2. He can still draw a foul. He can still turn somebody, even if he's being marked tightly. He can still turn them and either get a foul or beat them. So to pull himself out of the play completely just to pull Ghana out of the play is like, well, that's hurting us. And on top of that, he does move a lot. I noticed this whenever he was doing this to Hazard when we played at Old Trafford. Herrera when we were playing at Old Trafford. He kept pulling him out wide. He kept pulling him out of the middle, which should have opened up space for the likes of Matic, the likes of Costa, Pedro to cut inside. But on that day, Matic was terrible, Costa was terrible, Pedro was terrible. So it was like we weren't really creating anything because everybody else wasn't moving, everybody else wasn't on their game. Today, he's opened up that space because he's pulled out wide, Ghana's gone with him. Now all of a sudden there's so much space, Costa and Pedro find the space. That's where we look dangerous today. I mean, that's it. And so I think it's kind of showing that even if you do man mark him, it's still not the best answer. It's kind of an answer. It's something that if you have a player who can do it, for the most part, give it a go because it will keep us out for a little bit. But I think overall, you look at just the performance of Hazard, you look at what he did to sort of help out the team, I think he still does enough to where he pulls Ghana out of the play and he's still involved at the same time. Maybe not as involved as he normally is, but he doesn't have the same free roaming ability with somebody man marking him, so I don't expect him to be. So I don't know, I'm watching him today, I'm like, yeah, he's still able to do a whole lot, even when being specifically marked. That's the definition of a world-class player, in my opinion. And then on to, of course, the striker, Costa. Didn't really do a whole lot today. Probably should have had a goal early on that volley that came in. Brilliant strength to sort of hold off Jagielka, and then brings it down. Should have kept it down. Probably should have hit over it, but what can you do? You're one-on-one with the keeper. Adrenaline's going through you. Miss it. But overall, I was fairly pleased with him. I think he did enough to pressure the defense, enough to kind of work them hard, that it helped out our other attacking players to sort of get forward in the attack and help out. So I think the work he does off the ball most of the time is the best part of his game, but it's not the most noticed. And so I think that's why a lot of people, say he's been having a struggling run of form recently. There have been a couple games where he hasn't been involved at all. He hasn't really moved at all. But today was one of those games where he wasn't really involved. He had one clear-cut chance that he missed. I still think he was doing well enough today because he's causing the defense a lot of problems. He's making it difficult on them. He's making it to where they have to work and they get tired doing it. So, I don't know. I just think overall I was pleased. On to the subs that came on. I already talked about Ake. I talked about Fabregas a little bit. And Willian came on, got himself a goal. I think one of the things that he brings to our team that nobody else up top really does is he's got just he's got this ability to sort of find himself in the right position at the right time. You know, there are a lot of times where you find Hazard winning a ball, or you find him on the end of a pass where it's by design. You know, like he and Costa know what each other's thinking. He and Pedro know what each other's thinking, and so he makes a great run. They find that run, and that's it. Willian Moore is like he's got so much energy and so much speed that even if he makes a wrong run, all of a sudden he's making the right run right after that. So it's almost like it doesn't matter what type of ball is played in. There's a good chance Willian's going to be on the end of it because he moves so much and there's so much quickness in what he does. But that, I mean, honestly, that goal was just a brilliant little piece of play from Costa to Fabregas, straight into Willian. He's just running in unmarked. Good finish. But I don't know. I think he does deserve probably to get a bit more time than he does right now. Obviously, Pedro pulling off these world-class goals at times. It's hard to really break into the team whenever you got a player out there doing that. But I think he does do enough to sort of warrant maybe getting a sub in about 65 minutes in instead of 85 minutes in. But maybe that's just me. So that's about it for this game. Obviously looking forward. Last 4 games between us and Tottenham, very favorable for us. We got 3 home games in those, and those 3 home games are all 2 of them are against sides that are pretty much, one's already been relegated, Sunderland. The other one, good chance of being relegated next weekend, Middlesbrough. On top of that, the other one's Watford. That's just, I don't know, they're kind of in mid-table obscurity right now. And then West Brom away will probably be a bit difficult just because, I don't know, West Brom has been off and on recently. There have been times where they're a difficult team to play against, and there have been times where they just are terrible. Meanwhile, Tottenham, much more difficult running. They've got Leicester away, who are in good form. They've got Hull away on the last day of the season, which, if Swansea and Hull keep trading points like this, good chance they'll be fighting for their survival on the last day, so they won't want to drop any points. That'll be difficult. Still got Man U, who, even though they're drawing a lot, they are on a 25 game unbeaten streak. So that'll always be a difficult game, and a good chance for them to drop points. And I think the last one is like, the other one's like some sort of obscure team. I want to say Southampton, but I'm not entirely sure. It's not one that I would look at and I was like, oh, that's going to be really, really difficult. It may have actually been West Ham. But, looking at those last 4 games, it's definitely much more favorable for us. Obviously, we only have to win 3 of these last 4 to make it through, and all of the home games look very easily winnable. However, with that being said, the complacency needs to stay out of our team. The complacency we had against Palace where we got a goal early on, it's just like, oh yeah, we're good guys, and all of a sudden gave up 2 cheap goals right away. That sort of complacency can't happen. And as we saw today, Middlesbrough, even though they're pretty much down and out of it, can still fight. They drew Man City. That's something to be a bit concerned about. So, I don't know. I look at that and I think it should be easy. At the same time, if we have these problems that we've been having, if we have these defensive struggles, Cahill and David Luiz still causing goals to happen against us, still not tracking very well, Matic still featuring and not really providing much in the midfield. There's a chance that we could end this season with a bit of a slur, downturn, something. I don't know, whatever you want to call it at the end of the season. So I don't know. I'm just looking forward. Bit concerned about that. Hopefully we can keep that out of our game. But I have faith in our team to do that. So let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What did you like and dislike about this game? Who's your man of the match? Let me know. We can talk about it and discuss all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future Chelsea reviews, and I'll see you at the next game. Peace out.